Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. How are we all feeling? Because I'm going to tell you something for free. I've got a funny feeling Eddie Howe was quite frustrated, and I'll give you 4 reasons why. Brian Mbeumo, Matthias Cunha, João Pedro, Hugo Ekitike, we've got none of them over the line. For some reason, I'm calm about the situation. I know there's some Newcastle fans out there thinking this is terrible and they are getting frustrated. I've got a funny little feeling there is another plan in place and we will be fully prepared going into next season. So I'm calm about the situation. Now, what I will say is when we first started this Saudi project, we were shopping in a different market. We weren't competing with the elite. Now we're going after players that are in the elite, because we targeted development players and players that would get us to this level, such as Bruno, Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, all those players that were showing good potential, but not quite at the very elite level. Now we're looking for players at that elite level. So you've got to compete with bigger teams and bigger pool of teams to try and get them over the line. That's the difference. So having a few rejections is expected. Every team has rejections one way or another. So we've kind of went from project players who Eddie Howe can develop and make into better players, which he has done, to let's get players in that can hit the ground running straight away. So that's the difference in the transfer markets. It's not because we're getting rejected because we haven't got a pull. It's because we're going after different sorts and types of players and where they're at in their stages. So we're going to be doing an interesting video today. And I say it's interesting because I had a comment from somebody yesterday saying, can I do a deeper dive into Benjamin Šeško and Samu and compare them to Alexander Isak in terms of their speed or the good in transitions, the non-penalty expected goals, their shots per 90, their shot maps, and looking in detail at exactly what the will bring. So I said this before, this channel is your channel just as much as it's my channel. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm also at the end going to add on a Hugo Ekitike alternative that I've had nobody speak about, that I know could actually play that role that Eddie Howe envisioned. So we're going to be looking at him, and I'm not going to disclose his name. You're going to have to wait till the end. Now, before I got that comment, I did have a video lined up, but I just want to say thank you very much for whoever gave us that suggestion. And I've said this before, this is your channel, but this is the video I had lined up. Now I've already prepared this video, so I was going to look at strikers that we are getting linked to, because like I said in the last video, I've got no doubt we're going to get linked to Darwin Núñez, Nicholas Jackson, and that is exactly what is happening. But I also added on a few other players like Johan Wissa. I want to give you my thoughts on Johan Wissa. If he's going to cost 50 million, there's much better out there that'll be cheaper, better value for money with a higher ceiling. So if you're asking me now, before we even break down statistics and look at his style of play, if I was to sign Johan Wissa for 50 million, I'd walk away from the deal. So if you do want to see that video, let me know in the comments below and I will do it. And before we get started, these are the strikers that I've already looked at in previous videos, so I won't be doing it again because 1, it's time consuming, and 2, it's boring for you if I just sit there and repeat myself. So if you want to check out any of those strikers that are in that list, go back on previous videos because you will find them in there. But I want to do a quick recap on Samu, Benjamin Šeško from screenshots from yesterday. Now, I'm not going to go through all that, but what you're going to get with Samu is a box predator. He wants to be inside the penalty box. He wants to dominate that penalty box. And all of his goals last season came inside the box. So that just tells you what type of striker you're going to get. He's kind of a mix between a powerful poacher. He's good with his movement, but he's sharp and explosive rather than cute and clever. And he scores a variety of goals. He's comfortable with his left foot, his right foot, and his head. I think he scored 12 goals with his right foot, 4 goals with his left foot, and 5 goals with his head. Something like that. So there was a variety last season of how he scored his goals. Now, one thing I do like about Samu, and one of my favorite things about him, is how much he shoots per 90. He wants to get shots off. He wants to get in the box. And I absolutely love that about any striker. He's big, strong, powerful, gives defenders absolute nightmares. So that's what you're going to get with Samu. When it comes to Benjamin Šeško, he's a different type of profile, but also got some similarities because, again, he's a modern day centre forward. Nice blend of physicality, agility, directness, and finesse. Now, for his size, I think he's about 6'3". He's actually quite mobile and agile, which I like. But why I think there's some similarities to Samu is because they can both score all types of goals, whether that be first-time finishes, headers, finesse finishes, powerful ball striking. So they both offer that box presence and exceptional movement inside the box. Now, the biggest difference between Šeško and Samu in possession is Šeško's better at leading transitions. Samu's probably better at finishing transitions, but when it comes to leading transitions, getting on the ball and driving the team forward, Šeško's probably your guy for that. But when it comes to comparison to Alexander Isak and then each other, this is how it looks. And this is where this video really starts, because let's look at Samu in comparison to Alexander Isak. Samu offers more of a traditional profile. He's physical, direct. He's not as sharp or comfortable as Alexander Isak in possession, but his actions would be more explosive, quick bursts over short distances, whereas Alexander Isak is more of an elegant striker, elite ball carrier. He can weave in and out of traffic, he can beat or pack 2 or 3 players out of the game, and he's got that profile where he can drift wide, he can rotate with players, so he offers more fluidity in that final third, whereas Samu doesn't really have that profile. He's not somebody that is going to drift wide, get on the ball and then drive inside the penalty area. He's that guy that wants to be inside the penalty area. That's why I think out of all three, he's best at finishing transitions rather than being involved in transitions. Now, when it comes to Benjamin Šeško, the first point I want to make is a lot of people are saying that he's demanding ridiculous wages. Now, from what I've heard, and again, I'm not the in the know type of person, so this might not be true, it might be true, but I do know a few people that work in the football industry. Now, the reason Arsenal didn't sign him is because he wanted a release clause in his contract, and Arsenal couldn't understand that, because as it stands as of July 2025, Benjamin Šeško has a release clause of 80 million euros. That's about 66 million pound. Now, he wanted a release clause in his Arsenal contract for 66 million pound. So Arsenal were thinking, we're going to buy you 66 million pound, right? And then somebody can just activate your release clause for 66 million pound. Benjamin Šeško used to have a 60 million pound release clause in terms of euros, but because he hit his incentives, that increased to 80 million euros as of the 1st of July. So that is the reason why Arsenal stepped away from the deal, because they thought that they're not going to make any money off him, and they can't make any money off him, because if they buy him 66 million pounds, club can just activate that and then Arsenal walk away with nothing. So again, that's just what I've heard. I don't know how true it is. It could be to do with wages, but that is what I've heard, so I take it for what it is. But let's get back to this, because this is why we're all here. Benjamin Šeško offers a more traditional profile to Alexander Isak, so he does like using his physicality a little bit more than Alexander Isak, so we could actually go a little bit more direct. He's less fluid in the front line, but he's more fluid than Samu. What I mean by that, he does occupy the central areas, doesn't drift as wide as Alexander Isak, but he's good at leading transitions through the inside channels, whereas Samu's a bit more of a straight line runner, whereas Šeško is a bit more cute and clever than Samu with his movement, but not as cute and clever as Alexander Isak, if that makes sense. And again, just like I mentioned previously, Alexander Isak offers a more elegant ball carrying style. He drifts wide, rotates with teammates a lot more. So he offers that fluidity in the final third, but he's also got a little bit more creativity than them both. So how does Samu compare to Šeško? Well, Samu offers a more box predator profile. He's somebody that likes to be in between the posts. So he offers more of an explosive movement inside and outside the box, and he uses straight line runs. So Samu is more powerful, but less active in possession. Šeško is currently thriving in a transitional team with Leipzig, and he's comfortable leading that transition. He's surprisingly agile for his size. He offers more fluid mobility, so he's better in fluid systems. He's comfortable drifting into channels and creating space. So although Šeško is not the most nimble forward out there, he's more nimble than Samu, and he will get involved in the game a lot more. But what I will say about all three profiles, all showing good alignment with their XG, positive indicator for finishing consistency. So let's take a deeper look at their XG. And if you look at Alexander Isak in isolation at first, he's obviously playing in the Premier League, so you don't get as much time or space in the Premier League. So when it comes to Alexander Isak, his statistics are off the scales. Like, he is elite of the elitists because he's doing it in the best league in the world. So when we are comparing statistics and looking at statistics, you've got to understand the disparity in league. When you're playing in the Portuguese league or even the Bundesliga, you get more time and space on the ball, and you also get more time and space to exploit. So let's just remember that when we are looking at statistics. So again, I'm under no illusion that Alexander Isak is doing it in a much, much more difficult league. When it comes to sprint speed recorded last season, Alexander Isak was hitting 33.6 kilometers per hour, Samu 33 kilometers per hour, and Benjamin Šeško 35.9 kilometers per hour. So pretty much in a foot race, Benjamin Šeško will get first place, Alexander Isak second, and then Samu, you're last. But when it comes to XG, they're all overperforming in the league for their XG. Alexander Isak had a non-penalty XG of 20.42, which is exceptional, and scoring 23 goals. Samu had an XG of 16.39. He scored 19 goals. Benjamin Šeško's was a little bit closer, if I'm being fair to the kid, just over his XG. Had an XG of 12.5. He scored 13 goals. I know you're going to call us woke, all this woke nonsense, but I actually like XG because it gives you an indication of, do they get into good positions? Now, that's how I see XG. I see XG is they're getting into good positions to have that opportunity. Does that make sense? Now, with the scoring from those positions, it's even better. Because as a person that looks at different profiles, different attributes for clubs, and even myself, do look at XG because it gives you a clear incentive of what they're doing. Because if they've got a good XG with a greater margin, but they're not scoring at all, it means they're getting into positions, but just not finishing their chances. Now, me, as somebody that has helped clubs scout players, I always say to clubs, right, there's one thing to look out with strikers. Are they getting into good positions, or do they hide from good positions? If they're hiding from good positions, which means they've got low XG, get away from them, because they're not confident enough to even try and put themselves in that position. Now, if they've got a high XG, it means they're comfortable getting into good positions, and even if they're not hitting their XG, they'll continue to get into those good positions. I want my striker to continue. I'd rather my striker get into 10 good positions, miss 8 of them, score 2 of them, than not get into any at all. Does that make sense? I've tried to explain that the best I can, boys and girls. If there's any girls watching, I don't know. And lastly, I like to look at shots on target, because for me personally, this is just a personal thing. I want my strikers to have shots. If your striker's not having any shots, then there's no point in them being there, because goals win your games. Alexander Isak actually shoots a lot. Same as Samu. Both got a high shot volume per 90, which I absolutely love. And it's actually exactly the same. 3.1 last season shots per 90. Now, the difference is Alexander Isak's getting his shots more on target. He's averaging 43.2%, which is very good. Samu's averaging 37.2%. So if I'm looking at that, that's an area for improvement. If I'm Eddie Howe, I'd be saying, look, how can we get that from? He's probably at a B now. We want that at closer to 50. Whereas Benjamin Šeško's having less shots per 90 at 2.54, but he's actually getting more shots on target. So pound for pound, Alexander Isak, when it comes to shot volume, shots on target, is above the other two, because he's averaging more shots and he's just under what Šeško is for shots on target. So again, Alexander Isak, when it comes to completeness in terms of a striker profile, there is not many like him. Okay, so the next thing you look at is where he's getting his shots from. Now, Alexander Isak is actually very impressive here, because he scores a lot of the goals that he should be scoring. So if I quickly explain this metric, the shorter the circle, the less of an opportunity it is. The bigger the circle is, the better goal scoring opportunity. Now, the biggest difference I've noticed for Alexander Isak, and this is something he spoke about in an interview before last season, he wanted to score more goals in the 6-yard box, and he's clearly done that. He ranks 3rd out of all Europe's top 5 leagues for goals inside the 6-yard box. The season prior to that, he didn't score any inside the 6-yard box. And he said him and Eddie Howe were working on him scoring more goals inside that 6-yard box. That's where I want my striker to be. Eddie Howe clearly works on weaknesses and how to improve. And like I say, how to get players from level B to level A. And that's what he's done with Alexander Isak. And as you can see from his shot volume and his shot map, he likes to be inside that box now. Now, there is a couple that I don't like, those in the wider areas that are not very good opportunities, but he's still taking those shots. If you can decrease them and try and get into a better position by maybe lending the ball off and then moving inside the box, that's what I would be working on. But when it comes to shot volume, converting chances, Alexander Isak is absolutely insane. Now, Samu offers a bit of a different profile. Now, couldn't get the statistics from Samu in the Portuguese league because they don't do that, but they do it for the Spanish league. So this is from Samu from 2023-24 season, but again, shows exactly what Samu's all about. He takes a majority of his shots in that 18-yard box, and it's very centrally. He wants to be inside those posts. Now, I like that about Samu because he's got the physical profile to dominate defenders, so you want him in those areas. Whereas Alexander Isak has that ability to score from different angles. He's got that finesse, he's got that placement in his shots, he's got that composure. So when he's taking shots from just close to the 6-yard box edges, I don't mind that. But Samu doesn't really have that composure. Him inside the penalty area is all about explosive movement. When you're acting with explosive movement, you want to be centrally because you can get rebounds, ricochets, and you're not having as much composure when you're taking your shots. But when it comes to Samu, he very rarely scores from outside the box. he hasn't got that technical precision to really place his shots. So what I would be saying to Samu is, let's not take shots from outside the box because you very rarely score from it. Lend the ball off and then get inside the penalty area because you're good at rebounds, ricochets, picking up loose balls, but also getting across your man and scoring that way. When it comes to Benjamin Šeško, he's a little bit different from Samu. He has that technical ability where he can score from outside the box. That's why I don't mind these shots from outside the box. Now, these ones in the little corner areas, I'd be saying get rid of them. Stop doing them because you're not scoring from those opportunities. Now, what I would like to see with Benjamin Šeško is him getting into better opportunities because as you can see, those opportunities are quite small. So if I'm anyhow, what I would be working on is, can you ghost into space a little bit better? Now, when it comes to ball striking and being innovative with your finishing, there's absolutely no better than Benjamin Šeško. He is so comfortable in tight situations, first-time finishes. He's so good at it. So what I would be saying to him, do what you're good at, play to your strengths, and that's being inside the box. Now, you also want to see side-by-side comparison from Benjamin Šeško and Samu, and it is exactly what I said. Benjamin Šeško has that ability to lead transitions. That's why he's averaging more touches per 90, more successful take-ons, more progressive carries, more progressive passes, because he will get involved in the game a lot more. Now, he's not a false nine, but he's happy and comfortable enough to get involved in link midfield to attack. Now, he's also got that pace about him to get in behind, to stretch defenses. So he's got a little bit more of a complete profile than what Samu brings. But what Samu brings is that devastating effect inside the box. Somebody that can bully defenders. And I tell you something, if I'm a Premier League defender, I'd be looking at Samu thinking, boy, I don't want to play against him. He's aggressive, he's sharp, he's physical, he's powerful. You do not want to come up against a physical profile like that. And he's quite quick. Averaging 33 kilometers per hour is quick for a man of his size. But again, if you look at the other side of the map, the non-penalty goals, non-penalty XG, the Samu is a lot higher than Benjamin Šeško because I said this before, his thought process is get me in between the posts, get me in that penalty area because I want to score goals. And that's exactly what I like in a striker. So I kind of feel like if you mesh the two together, you'd have the complete profile. But what I will say is Benjamin Šeško is good at getting involved in play, but when it comes to that final third and creating chances for his teammates, he doesn't have that quality about him. So he's not somebody that is going to break down low blocks for you. Neither of these players are. These are the players that want to finish the opportunity, but Benjamin Šeško is a little bit more comfortable in terms of getting involved in the play. So that's how the two compare to each other. Now, I did think to myself, what else could I add into this video? And there's a striker that not many people have mentioned, and he has been going under the radar for quite a while. And if you think about what Hugo Ekitike gives you, he gives you somebody that's skillful in possession, comfortable in possession, can beat a man, also offers you that tactical flexibility because he can play out wide or he can play as a second striker. So he offers you that two-tier system, for example, a 4-4-2, and he could play alongside Alexander Isak. So it got us thinking, who else has that profile? Who else somebody that can offer tactical flexibility, but also good in possession, that also wants to score goals? Now, those players are absolutely diamonds and they're hard to find. But I think I found one that could interest a lot of you. Now, I listened to the pronunciation on Google. So if I get this wrong, I'm sorry, guys. Georges Mikaudadze. Now, I'm just going to call him George because it makes it a lot easier. So he's currently at Lyon playing in Ligue 1. And as you can see, when it comes to well-rounded profiles, he's got that ability. So he's comfortable in possession. He can be man, gets involved in the play. He's progressive in his play, up with passes and carries. He also creates for his teammates as well as score goals. He doesn't score as many as Alexander Isak. He's not getting in as good positions as Alexander Isak, but the profile is very well-rounded. So what's this guy's style of play? Well, he scored 11 goals, provided 6 assists in 34 Ligue 1 games last season. Now, we all know Lyon's financial struggles, so he could actually be on the market for less than what his value actually is. And this is why I think it could be a smart pickup because, again, we don't need somebody to replace Alexander Isak. This is somebody to help rotate with Alexander Isak, but also play alongside Alexander Isak. So his style of play, versatile, he's technically gifted forward, blend of technical intelligence, finishing, creative spark, and movement. So when it comes to his finishing, he's comfortable finishing from both feet. Now, he is naturally right-footed, but he's got that ability to score goals without a big backswing. And I've spoke about this before, those little snapshots, that's how he catch keepers off guard, and he has that ability. So he's got that ability to get shots off with little next to no backlift. Now, he's not an aerial presence. He's not a Samu that is going to bulldoze defenders. He's going to really be powerful in the side box. His movement is all about stubble movements inside the box. Quite cute and clever like Alexander Isak. Now, when it comes to movement outside the box, Alexander Isak is one of the best at double movements. What I mean by double movements is coming short to receive the ball, but instead of receiving the ball, he spins away and moves into that space he's just created. If you watch Alexander Isak, he is so good at that. Now, George also has this. He's got that ability just to come short, but then he's created space in behind, and then he spins off and receives in behind. I love that because you're absolutely manipulating the opposition. Now, one thing I will say about his movement, he's comfortable in tight spaces. He drifts wide like Alexander Isak does. Now, sometimes he is a little bit too eager and gets caught offside, so you would have to just teach him how to understand the timing of his runs. If you can do that, he can be devastating. Now, when it comes to in possession, he's exceptional in possession. Technically very gifted. Now, what I like about him, he dribbles like a winger. He's got that ability to modulate his speed with stop and start movements, and that allows him to manipulate opponents. He's comfortable in tight spaces. He turns quickly. He understands pressure. He's got nice agility and balance about him. Very similar to Alexander Isak. Now, he's not as tall as Alexander Isak. I think George stands at 5'9", but he's got that low center of gravity, that ability just to shift his body weight and really offset defenders, and that's how he beats them. But again, like I mentioned earlier, he's got that tactical flexibility where he would enable Newcastle to operate in a two-tier front line, such as a 4-4-2, but he's also occasionally played as a number 10 for Lyon, so he can even allow you to play in that 4-2-3-1 formation if you wanted to. Now, when it comes to areas for improvement, physicality is one. He can be dominated at times by aggressive defenders. And then finally, his link-up play. I put this more towards his final ball because sometimes he does rush it or choose the wrong decision. So just having a little bit more composure when it comes to that final ball would just elevate his statistics to another level. So how does he compare directly to Alexander Isak? Well, there is a lot of similarities, but Isak is a lot more refined in all his actions. Isak offers more of a goal volume threat, whereas George offers a little bit more in possession, so he's got those natural creative instincts. Now, when it comes to his shot map, he doesn't have as high XG as any of the others, so he's not getting into good positions as much as Šeško, Samu or Isak. But as you can see, he's got a lot of big circles. The big circles represent when he does get into the box, he's actually getting himself into good positions. So he scored 11 goals from an XG of 10.62. Now, there is some circles that are quite big that haven't been filled out, so I'll be looking at that if I was a scout and saying, when you're getting into these positions, you need to be converting those chances. Once you convert those chances, your statistics are just going to be off the scales. As you can see, there's bubbles in the middle that are quite big but are empty. Those are the chances that you need to be putting away. So guys, I want to hear from you guys. Judging by statistics, and you can't go everything from statistics, I've watched this guy quite a lot and he hasn't been starting much for Lyon, but when he comes on, he always impresses. So let me know in the comments below, would you welcome somebody like George to St. James's Park as a Hugo Ekitike alternative? Alexander Isak rotational, but also helper when we do want to change to a 4-4-2. Let me know in the comments below. But that's it for today's video. And if you want to see tomorrow's video in terms of those strikers, let me know in the comments below. But if you want to see a different video, that's fine. I'll prepare a different video. Now, somebody also said that I'm too slow reacting to news. What you've got to understand is this is not my full-time job. I'm just doing this alongside a full-time job. So I might be out of the house and I'll react to news as much as possible and as quick as possible. But sometimes I'm out the house and I'm not back till 7, 8 at night. And then I've got to make the video. I've got to prepare the video. So I will react to news as quickly and as soon as possible. But until this becomes my first time full-time job, it's going to have to be this way, I'm afraid, guys. So I do apologize. But if you want this to be my full-time job, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and just share every video as possible. And that would be greatly appreciated. So one thing left to say. Thank you very much for watching, and away the lads.